Hello, I'm Buddy Cook. Today I want to talk to you about some bugles. Now, for those of us in the States, we're probably very familiar with something like this. This is the regulation bugle. This is the last one that the U.S. military specified for the Army back right at the turn of the last century. And this is in the key of G. Everybody's familiar with this. The Boy Scouts adopted it as their official bugle, and it's still in production over 100 years later. You can buy a brand new one if you wanted. Now, a lot of people don't think about it that the military also was using bugles in B flat. This is nicknamed a trench bugle. We can talk more about that, but this was something the U.S. Army was using at the same time also. So bugles come in a lot of different keys, and some of our partners overseas, the French military likes to use cavalry trumpets in E flat. So I saw some of them online that were for sale as a set and ordered them up, and they showed up, and the first one I pulled out of the box was this wonderful piece of scrap metal. So we can just imagine what kind of battle this must have gone through. At least we can come up with a really good story about that. In fact, when I showed this to one of my friends who's a tech, his thought was that it might have been originally silver plated. Someone tried to strip the silver off, or just someone doing a bad repair job on the bell and not annealing it and just shredding this thing to bits in the process of overworking the metal. So that's not very useful. Although it is an interesting piece. This is a Queenon, excuse my French, and this was made in 1922. Everything made by that company has always been handmade. They are still in business, but so this would have been a handmade instrument made in Paris at the time. So we can put that aside. And also out of that box came this wonderful piece of bugle-shaped object. So this is made by Parrot, and you can see, along with being made in Parrot, it is made in China. But it does play so this is in the key of B flat. It's really lightweight, but it does sort of function. And it came with a mouthpiece. And looking at the shank on this, this is a Queenon shank mouthpiece that fits in that. So to talk a little bit about mouthpieces, the taper on this, there isn't any. Which may be why this Chinese instrument decided to use it, because they can make a mouthpiece receiver that's just the bore. It's flat. There is no taper in this. There's just a little bit of a hip up at the top so that you slide the mouthpiece in, and that's it. So easy for the manufacturer of the horn to deal with. Hard to find a mouthpiece that fits it. But then there were some other instruments in there. So this is an actual E-flat cavalry trumpet or cavalry bugle used in France. This one is made by a company named Jerome, and as it was in a lot of these period instruments, the full address, I'll have to see if I can get a better picture of this, the full address right down to where on the street it is on here. There doesn't appear to be an actual serial number anywhere on the horn or anything to date it off of, but you know, this is something that's probably early 20th century, I would guess. It does actually have a holder for a lyre on here, and it had a spit valve, which someone has decided to repair by simply closing it up so that you don't have a problem that you're missing the actual valve. Now this one took a mouthpiece that is very large. I don't know exactly what it is. It does fit this horn. This is something older, kind of custom, not really standard. Don't know what you'd call that shank, but it won't fit a trumpet mouthpiece. So this horn looks good, but it does have some issues. The minor one being the slide is stuck, so you can't tune it. But other than that, it leaks like a sieve. I tried to clean it out and poured some water in it, and immediately just water started spouting out of. There's a nice little hole here, a nice little pinhole. It seems to be leaking around some of these solder joints. There was drips coming out from underneath the saddle here for where that's attached, and just some other places I think it's leaking. And it might be stuffed up a little something. I have not finished cleaning it yet. Every time I put water in it and run a snake through it, I dump out muddy, dirty crud. And then I do it over again and get muddy, dirty crud. So I think there's something really nasty inside of this, and with the tuning slide, you can't get off it. We're doing the best. But, so with all those little holes, of course, that affects the sound. Yeah, so there's something clogging it up, and it's leaking air in several places. Here. So, not the most functional, but it does look nice. It does look nice. The next one that came out of the box was this. This is a Queenon made in Paris, France. Handmade in Paris, France. So, not too bad looking. You can see here, this is not exactly straight in several dimensions. There is all kinds of blobs of solder where someone took great care to try and repair this, and I really, really love, must have been a big hole that needed a patch job. This appears to be a copper pipe fitting that changes from one size to another. Or joins, and so they kind of cut that off and fit it around and soldered that on, and it holds air. So go with that. It is what it is. I tried to find out the provenance on this set of instruments, and the seller just knew that he had gotten them as a set, and his suspicion was that they probably got used by a company band, probably in a mining company. I guess because they came from northern France, I don't know. And, whoever band had these really kept them in service as long as they possibly could before getting rid of them. When I got it, the mouthpiece was stuck, and I said, oh, that's kind of interesting. Is that a nasty gold-plated mouthpiece or just brass? And when we pulled it, that's still silver-plated, what was inside the horn. So over the years, they managed to polish off all of the silver that was sticking out of the stuck mouthpiece. So this is a Queenon mouthpiece, probably original to the horn. Again, there's no dates on this one. Maybe mid-early 20th century would be my guess. It is what it is. And there's still some fluid in there from my cleaning it out. I might have to make a new sound file for this. Actually, if we look there, that's not a seam, that's a crack. Like the pipe got bent and a nice crack through there. Just snapped it off. That's another nice wall hanger, piece of art. And then the last one that came out of the box was this. I made another video where I cleaned it up and took it from black back to silver. So you can go watch that. This one takes a standard trumpet mouthpiece. So this may be a slightly younger instrument. This is also handmade by Queenon in Paris, made in France. Right there on the bell. So this was looking kind of good. The tuning slide functions, everything's there. There wasn't anything massively wrong with it. There's, I took it in to get that resoldered, and or at least to consider it. And I went and tried to clean the horn out first, and when I did that, went to play it afterwards, there's a crack. There's pretty much a crack that runs from here to here. These were handmade, so it must be right along the seam on the tube, and it was all leaking air. At the moment, I have a patch job with some silver foil duct tape, which is good for sealing air. So sealed that up to deal with that. you know, the horn pretty much have to get completely disassembled to try and fix it with some kind of patch, and it probably wouldn't fit back together with a patch in place. The bell's slightly dented, but it plays. So this is a E flat key trumpet in E flat. Now, being that we've been dealing with all of these French instruments, I thought it might be fitting if I do honor to our friends and our allies from the French and play a little bugle call on a French instrument. This is Aux Morts. It's kind of their version of taps. After hearing the British last post and the American taps, one of the French generals thought it'd be a good idea if they had something similar. From what I understand, this was first played in 1931. So, in honor of our French comrades.